At FIE, we're not just
students
and faculty.
We're not only learners
and lecturers.
We are expanding minds,
Expanding futures.
We're redefining the classroom.
We are life-changing.
eye-opening. We are a community
Driven by our values.
That wants you.
you.
Yes, you.
To join.
Hello and welcome to In the Field, a podcast from FIE where we will be exploring all things study abroad. I'm Dr. Heidi James Dunbar, writer in residence and senior faculty, and I will be your host. In today's episode, I'm speaking to some of my fantastic colleagues and asking for their advice and insider scoop on how best to prepare for your study abroad semester. We'll be talking about how to choose courses, how to prepare for your studies, how to set up a support network before you get here, and managing your expectations. Most importantly, we're going to be giving you the advice you need on how to get the absolute most from this fantastic experience. So keep listening. Hi Minaree, how are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Not at all. Tell us about your role at FIE and what you do, and then what do you think students can do to be prepared before they
Yeah,
arrive?
absolutely. So I'm the Student Life Coordinator based in Foundation House. My role is all things students, less academics, but all things students. So we deal with health and well-being, London in general, advising students how to navigate London, and more admin bits as well in terms of planning orientation and helping students through their first week and getting them all in and settled. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's a really important point to emphasize, is that students don't arrive and then are just left to their own devices. There's a really comprehensive orientation program where there's lots of information, lots of advice. They meet everyone in all the teams. They are supported through.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we try to put the face to the names. They get all their pre-departure comms as well, but that can be quite overwhelming for students because there's so much to sort of get grasp of before they arrive. And then as soon as they come, typically on Wednesday, Thursday, through to Saturday, Sunday, they're sort of just getting introduced to the team, getting their welcome packs and their Oyster cards, if that's a thing that they get in their packs. And yeah, it's just day by day we take it, but usually the orientation with all the presentations hopefully solidifies to them what London, the introduction to London is.
Yeah, perfect. What would you say are your top sort of points for how best to prepare? Because it can be overwhelming. So how can students get their head around it best before they leave even?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we get packing lists and all of that stuff on the pre-departure comms, but then again, there's so much. But the number one thing I would say that students probably already see coming is the culture shock, just sort of learning how to accustom themselves to London, because it isn't just one big city. There's 32 boroughs in London, and they're also unique in its own forms and own identities. So, preparing for that can sort of mean just learning about the areas before you arrive as well. So, I'm sure people have heard of Brixton and Southall, Brick Lane, all these different populations. And I guess learning about that appreciates London's diversity. It helps you avoid cultural assumptions and encourages you to sort of be more respectful when you come, which is something they'll learn anyways when they arrive. I'd say number two, budgeting for London. Things can get really pricey. So I'd say if you're not paying attention to where your money goes, the next thing you know, you can get £0 in your account. So I think downloading budgeting apps like Revolut or Monzo, I think they help track your spending before you come. Those apps specifically. I'd say look up average prices for groceries and coffee and eating out. Coffee is a good £3.50 these days when you go Blank Street and stuff. So you don't want financial stress to like negatively affect your well-being unnecessarily without planning for it. So yeah, simple budget like helps like go a long way, I'd say. I'd say the third thing would be maybe preparing for independent living before you arrive. So sort of like if you've lived in dorms before, living abroad still brings you like new responsibilities. So sort of like brushing up on life skills, sort of like laundry, meal prep, like navigating appointments and like communicating with staff. Because if you're in Manson Place or Hyde Park Gate, you don't have the front desk, so there's more independent living there in comparison to Metro Gate, and it'll make you feel more confident, I'd say, more settled and sufficient from day one. The other one would be healthcare systems. Of course, if you're like staying under 6 months, you can't access the NHS, but there's still a lot to help. But I think bringing any medications you need, enough supply, is really important. Noting that antibiotics isn't given as freely as it is, I think, in the US. So that's really important as well. But then again, student life, we're here to help you, like guide you through doctor's appointments and stuff as well, mental health, physical health and stuff. Let me go on to the next few I've got. I would say, I think you can agree with this one actually. Don't expect the pub to be a party. Like, don't expect it to sort of be a place where it's like clubbing. I guess, visit each pub with curiosity. You might find Sunday roasts with families in one pub and like quiz nights in another, and then pets are very welcome. It's very family friendly, a lot of pubs anyway. So maybe when students are like really excited to drink as they turn 21, as they turn 18, see, 18 here in London. So yeah, just recognizing that pubs are like social hubs and not always like for heavy drinking, though people can get there. Another thing.
Yeah, they're not a bar.
No.
They're not a bar. They are a public house, and can be brilliant. You can have a cup of coffee and do some study there. Like they can be a really quiet, lovely place in the day where you can just get on with work actually and have a cup of coffee and some lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Get your laptop out. Actually, I'd probably encourage students to do that if they want a study spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say also be ready for the fast-paced streets of London as the next thing. Direct people. That's one thing I always get students coming to me and saying, like, oh, they're so direct. And it's like they're probably really busy or like just trying to get somewhere. They just walk, Londoners walk really fast, and they don't like people blocking their way. So, right.
Definitely on the tube escalators, that's really annoying. Stand to the right, please. Leave the left-hand lane on the tube escalator free, including on physical stairs as well. We move quickly on the left-hand side, and if you want to just stand. But yeah, I think people forget it's a really beautiful historic city, but it is a working city. People are hustling. They're getting to work. They're busy. They've got to get places.
Absolutely.
So whilst, you could be wandering around in awe at 1,000-year-old buildings, someone behind you is trying to get to the bank. So yeah, just be aware of that. I think that's a really good point. That's a brilliant point.
Watch how people interact and like, especially in queues and just casual conversations as a learning curve. Another thing is, as British humour is very often dry and ironic. So don't take it personally if you're like, wait, was that a joke, or are you just being sarcastic with me? And I think, understanding that that's a social norm like helps you like blend in and reduces the chances of feeling like you're unintentionally snubbed or something like that. But going on to crowds, I'd say get to know the tube system before you need it. So if you get an oyster when you arrive, then great, but it can be confusing. So the zone systems is one thing I think students, they have to sort of literally like figure out, and all the different lines. We'll still cover that in orientation when they arrive, but preparing for it beforehand. So downloading apps like Citymapper or TFL, practice reading the tube maps as well, learning about peak and off-peak pricing. You can use your bank card as well if you want, contactless. So I think learning about that before you arrive is actually really helpful, because then you won't feel like you're lost in a really big city.
It's surprisingly easy, though. I think you're absolutely right. But once you get your head around it, it's much easier than most public transport systems. Our tube maps are brilliant.
Yeah, they're so helpful and colourful.
Yeah, I would say get out and about in as many different districts and as much of London and the rest of the country as you can. It's easy to navigate and absolutely amazing, like really beautiful and very diverse.
Of course,
this country in so many ways. Any other top tips before students come here?
Yes, I'm narrowing it down. I'd say a plan with dealing with homesickness is really important. I'd say on a well-being side, I'd say sort of find a way to set a routine for checking in with loved ones and setting your limits at the same time. See what you can join in London, whether it's like activities, journaling, like projects and stuff. So I think if you have that set, it might help you navigate it from day one. I'd say that's quite important. But yeah, just a general sort of mental health toolkit in general. You probably find this one interesting. The get used to slang and local language. Yes, it's English, but it's not exactly how you know it. So, making notes of words like cheers or gonna go to the loo or can you get me a biscuit? Or that's the pavement, not sidewalk. Sidewalk. So yeah, understanding local language like helps you follow through conversations without being confused. I'd say not making you feel like a outsider, but we'll cover that again in orientation.
Take care crossing the road as well. Remember that we drive on the opposite side, so when you're crossing the road, look the other way.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I guess what is it? The zebra, the crossings we have, but jaywalking? Yeah, I think jaywalking is something that's illegal in the US, but I wouldn't encourage it here, of course. So use the zebra crossings here.
Yes, use the crossings.
Yes.
London's a busy, busy city.
Absolutely. But I'd say that's the majority of it. Plan weekend trips beyond London if you can, where you can, like Oxford, Brighton, Bath. It's not just all about London. And I think a lot of students do that in their weekend travels when they have time. And I would say, finally, leave expectations at home. So, whatever your expectations on what London is, just come with a whole blank slate, I would say, because I think when you do that, you don't know what you're going to come across, and that's the sort of beauty of it. So embrace the spontaneity, I guess, in that aspect.
I think our students have a really amazing time, particularly when they're just open to the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess on a student life perspective, that's the main points. We'll cover more when we obviously go through orientation, but I'm curious on an academic perspective. How would you sort of get students preparing before they arrive?
But I would say really similar to you guys, that we work really hard to make sure that our academic systems align with our students. So whilst there'll be mostly British faculty, and we do have a different system here, as you'll know from when you were at uni, we do align ours with our students, so they won't have the same pressures that we get at the end of term with a massive 5,000 word essays. It's not like that at all.
Absolutely.
But the best way they can prepare is just to remember that this is study abroad. It's not 3-month holiday. I mean, much as we'd all love to have that. And the classes are really geared up for them, and they are really interesting. But there will be reading, there will be work to do, and
Absolutely.
they have to be prepared for that. And be prepared for the fact there's more distractions.
Yeah.
It's fun. You can meet new people. It's a great, fantastic city. So just some time management, getting work done before you do go out and explore.
Yeah.
Lots of our classes are experiential, so you do get to go out and be a part of the city and experience London as part of your learning. So that's really exciting. But I think the key for in every aspect is that we are all here to support them. And so if they have any questions, particularly about academics, go to faculty. If that's not helping, speak to the academic team, and likewise speak to you guys in the student life team. Like, we're all here to support our students, and I think it's really important that they come to us with even a minor concern, a little worry, before it becomes something that is harder for them to cope with, whether that's academics and their workload, or, like you said, homesickness, or feeling a little bit out of sorts in a new space. Reaching out before that becomes more entrenched, before it becomes something bigger, is, we can get the supports in there, and we are all there to support. And I think that's the biggest. I think when you're coming here, it's just to remember you're not actually alone. It can feel like that, but you're really not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the academic team do such a great job in reminding that to students, like throughout the semester, that they're not actually alone. And whilst they're balancing the whole aspect of learning and like living in a new city, that balance can be quite difficult, isn't it, for students in general? Like just figuring out how to navigate. Because I'm curious with coming from America to the UK and studying here, what's the main differences that they can sort of expect in terms of grading? And is it quite different or quite similar? Because it's the same, isn't it? Or
no, we grade in the same way as in the States, because obviously our grades then are transferred back for American transcripts, so we grade the same way. What I would say is we are possibly, I wouldn't say more rigorous, but we don't hand out A's in the same way in the States. Like, and I could be wrong, but students have often said to me, I'm an A grade student, whereas here we don't think of that. It's not your identity. It's the quality of the work that you've handed in.
Yeah.
And so if it's really important to you and your grades really matter, let's say that your GPA matters for scholarships or what have you, I would say speak to your faculty and get the heads up. Pay attention to what the rubric says. Ask them for advice. I really need to keep my grades up. So what do you advise? How do I make this the best essay it could possibly be? Don't ask afterwards when it's too late. Ask for help, because we want everyone to succeed and do really, really well. But we have to have scholarly integrity, and there is rigor, and it has to be fair. So be prepared to put the work in, and people do succeed and do really, really well. I just think it is different when you're not in your comfort zone, so it can be tough. But most students leave, and it's absolutely, I can't think of anyone that said this hasn't changed their life for the better in all sorts of ways. I get so many students still in touch with me 10, 15 years later.
It's amazing.
Telling me about how their lives are, just flourishing. So I just think it's one of those things where if you ask for help, ask for the supports, give it your best shot, you'll have a fab time and do really, really well.
Absolutely. I think FIE does that really well in terms of just the experiential side. I think in orientation as well, they speak about, why don't you study in like the V&A where there's a beautiful library and it's not like a cafe, and you see all this architecture and it's gorgeous. And I think it's like integrating academic learning with London, and it's amazing. And I think that's what sort of blows students' minds off, like being able to do that.
You really are absolutely immersed in these incredible knowledge systems. It's mind-boggling and exciting. Yeah,
absolutely.
Any final thoughts before I let you go and be busy?
I think we covered a lot. but of course, when students come, we'll cover more.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think there's just endless things that you can learn from London in general. But yeah, prepping, I'd say read the emails that go out as much as possible before you come. That's quite important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I would say do read the emails. They're
Yeah.
not just full of bump. We are really careful to make sure that every email we send has relevant and important information.
Yeah.
And when you get your My Study login, this is particular for academics really, but when you get your My Study logins, log in and check out your class pages, because there will be lots of info, preparatory info put there by your faculty, just getting you ready for your very first class. And if you forget something, they will have it there, where your homework should go, what your homework is, what you need to bring to class. So My Study and your emails are your friends.
Absolutely. It's all there. It's all there.
Yeah. Yeah. The information's there. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you, Heidi.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Brown. I work as the admissions manager at FIE, but I also work as an RLS, which is kind of our equivalent to an RA for our London residences. So yes, I have a lot of experience with students now, but I've also had my own journeys and different roles supporting students as they go abroad and all that jazz.
And weren't you a study abroad student yourself?
I was a study abroad student. I hate to calculate the years, but I guess right now it would be 10 years ago. I studied abroad in a little tiny French village called La Rochelle.
Ooh.
And I did that for about, a semester, I think it was. So I come to these conversations with many different hats on, many different lenses.
Très bien.
Oui.
So what would be your advice for students who are preparing to study abroad?
Yeah, I think a really important part that is sometimes overlooked because we're focusing on packing and the academic part and making sure our classes are coming over. But I think a really important part that can be overlooked and maybe quite jarring if it is overlooked is that mental preparation, and kind of thinking, what does that semester look like for me and how will I feel in that space? I know that definitely took me by storm when I was studying abroad, and I had to kind of do a revisit of how I was successful back at home and what could I, do in my new space to get the most out of it, go explore, be successful in school. I could just rattle off all of these things that are expected of you when you're studying abroad. But I think for me, that definitely is the biggest part. It's the mental preparation and kind of throwing yourself all in, and letting the experience wash over you. It sounds like we're in a spa right now, but very much just kind of being up for the experience. I think when students approach it in a bit more of a combative light, that's when we can see, oh, this didn't go right, that didn't go right. The oven has pictures on it that I've never seen before. How do I use it? And that is all so valid and such an anxiety-inducing experience. So I think that is part of my preparation I would suggest for students is ask yourself how you deal with those situations and how you would deal with them. Yeah.
And that's really interesting because I think from what you're saying, it's almost like, and this is our society does this to us, but fear of getting anything wrong, fear of failure. And actually, I think we work really hard as a team to not allow anything to go horribly wrong for students. From the academics, we work with students, we will spot if a student's struggling, we will ask them what they need for supports, we will put those supports in place. So you actually have to work really, really hard to fail, to mess up. Like you say, the RLSs are there to help. You have to be quite dedicated. So it is, I think, I'm with you, just be open to exploring, to finding out who you are, let alone who and what this country is. Let yourself just be. be open. Don't worry about the small stuff. We'll figure it out with you and for you, and there'll be plenty of other people, and it'll be all right.
Yeah,
It's more like,
it'll be okay.
yeah, open up to the adventure about what can happen, what you're going to learn, who you're going to meet, what you're going to see.
Yeah. And I think to that point, we find, thinking back in university, like you find something that works for you. But in reality, you kind of change that every semester, don't you? Because you're changing courses. You're now the president of the swim club, no longer secretary. You are now taking on a job. It's off campus. And so I do think, especially like our American system, that university setup, if we allow it, can really generate some resiliency because you are constantly having to quickly evaluate how you're going to be successful in that semester. The hard part, I think, when you're studying abroad is we've now thrown you into a new country. We haven't thrown you. You have chosen to go to this new country, right? But it is this different experience. And some things that we think we have a hold of are not there. And so, yeah, to your point, like relying on that which might be more stable, which back on home campus might not be your academics, but here it would be. You can be successful. So I think that preparation is also thinking mentally, like, how am I successful on my home campus? Do I like to study in a library? Okay, let me look up the coolest libraries. We'll take London, for example, the coolest libraries in London. I want to go study there. And then you've kind of taken two birds with one stone, and you're doing something you really love and going, exploring. Yes, it's to a library, might not be to Oxford or wherever, but you're doing something you want to do. So you're being productive in that way, and that study abroad part. But you're also studying, which is really important, right? That's the base of all of this. And I think it's just thinking those things out loud. And I used to give myself I used to give myself shower pep talks. And sometimes it would just be as simple as today's going to be a good day. But sometimes it would be like, you're going to go do this, this, and this. And if that doesn't work out, let's pivot and do that. But it was kind of a mental exercise. And I didn't go into my study. I would do that during my study abroad, but I didn't go into that preparing to do that. It's something I kind of came to realizing I needed some like external out loud positivity. And I realized I could give that to myself. So yeah.
So what you're saying, it sounds like, is create some handholds for yourself. So if you know how you like to study, figure it out ahead of time. Like, or if it's really important to you to play a sport. I mean, we have lots of connections, and there's all sorts of things that go on in London. Join a team, join a club, so that you've got your kind of your safety and your security, your space, and from there you can kind of step out of your comfort zone and be prepared to go with it. Honestly, I just think some of the best adventures I've ever had in my life are where things didn't quite go to plan and something brilliant just evolved.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And just, we all know what it was like to be a freshman, and it's almost redoing that again. But you're meeting new people. And even if you are a solo explorer, but I always knew I needed someone to kind of get me over my initial, anxiety stress hump of going out alone. So like anyone that would come up to my room, we're doing this, this, and this. Do you want to come? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that I think is part of it is, yeah, you can't predict everything. You can't manage everything, but you can put yourself in different scenarios to do that exploring, and growing and learning and all those fun things that come with study abroad.
Yeah, learning about yourself is so important. It's like we always talk about exploring the place and you're exploring yourself. Like, what are you capable of? Who are you?
Yeah, what you like, what you don't like,
Mm.
who you like, who you don't like. And all of this is so powerful and enriching, and also such a big confidence builder. I am so proud. I get to watch our students go from arrival, check-in, hi, what's your name, to like big hugs when they're leaving our buildings. And it's such a beautiful journey that I get to witness,
Yeah.
and and how they are exploring and learning about themselves, and that confidence that they're
Yeah.
building in being all of that. And so it's really hard, like, the overlooked things. I wish I could tell you, like, layers, pack layers. But I think it really is important for our students to think about what they want to get out of something, and to understand you're going into a different place where things work, like there is a full functioning society, and you will notice it works differently than the US or your home country or wherever. Um, and I think just being open to that and maybe asking, "Ooh, but why does it work?"
Mm.
And maybe we're getting a little more into a different area of really enjoying those quirks, because I think sometimes those differences cause on arrival can cause students and anyone just, uh-oh, things are different, and you get a bit shaky. But just because they're different, and you mentioned this, just because they're different doesn't mean it's not okay,
Yeah.
and it won't be okay. And there are these high moments and these low moments. And I think the best advice I could ever give to a student is to learn from both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because you will have those. It's constantly a roller coaster.
Mm.
But to know that it's not a forever moment, which is really humbling on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. I think that's, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but I think when you have low moments, and they might be really fleeting, and it could be homesickness, it could be, I'm not sure that this class is going the way I'd hoped or whatever. I always think it's a really good idea to try and keep a perspective of how you'll be viewing this in a few years' time, or even in a year's time. Like, when it's over, how rich that experience will be, and you'll remember it in this kind of extraordinary growth moment. And those little
Mm.
grainy, granular irritants or moments of fear will be completely forgotten,
Mm.
but will be a part of who you've become.
Yeah. And and that is the beauty of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and in a nutshell, is you're constantly evolving and churning and changing. And yes, you look back and you go, "Oh my, that is why I do the things this way now," or "This has had such an impact on how I think." And so yeah, it's almost, what's the saying? Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know.
No, it
What?
is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you can prepare yourself, and that's why I think this is such a, especially this idea of how to prepare yourself for your semester abroad is such a good reflective moment. Because if you need that one pillow and it's going to make you have the best sleep ever, get that pillow, bring it with you, order it online, have it sent to your residence. But it's knowing that that pillow is such an integral part,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Like, we all have those different things that we need, right? And there's a big difference of saying, what do I need to be successful? How can I adapt to this space to be successful? And it's okay. I think that's such a powerful process for students to go through before they arrive. And maybe that's like really the piece of the puzzle that I think is overlooked is, like you said, reflecting on it 2-3 years down the line, even 10, 15, 20. It's such a beautifully enriching experience. But I think also reflecting before you arrive, what do you want to get out of it? It can also help it be just as enriching in the moment.
Totally. Yeah. Because it might mean you say yes to something, like you say, an invitation out from friends, that people you're sharing a dorm with, when you think, if you've had in your head, I want to be a person that goes out and does these things, I want to experience comedy and theatre or whatever in London, you might say yes if you're thinking about that rather than, no, I'm cold and I just want to watch Netflix. It's like you can watch Netflix and chill at home. Like if you have this idea of what you want to get out of it, you're more likely to be in the moment and saying yes.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's this weird catch 22 because you want to be in the moment, and even maybe catch 22 is not the right word there, but yes, you want to be in the moment. You want to get stuff out of the moment. You want to go explore. I think I was very much like a stay inside person with friends before I studied abroad. And we had a cohort and we were just meeting for the first time. And I remember we were all meant to meet in the airport. We're all speaking French also, which is a fun little layer to put on top of this. And I remember seeing my cohort and I just wasn't ready to go meet with them and talk with them. And I remember it's a very vivid memory for me of like a freezing moment. Like I was almost made immobile. And it was this fear and anxiety. And these are the people you're with for this semester. And I gave myself 2 hours because didn't have to meet for another 5. And I just sat there and I did what I wanted to do. And I pulled myself up and just like put myself in a good mental space. And then I went and met them, and some of them are very, very good friends to this day. And so it's kind of, figuring out what you need to put yourself in a good space to go, yes, let's go do that. My bed will be back there whenever. But these experiences might not be. Yeah.
I love that. So you gave yourself grace.
Yeah.
And then you did it.
Grace and space. Then just do it. And sometimes you do just need to. That's why we were chatting before about I don't love the idea of a yes man, but I think sometimes it can be a valuable idea maybe to just, like you said, but it's cold out. Like I don't want to be drenched in the rain. But what other time will I be in this scenario where I can go out with new people?
Yeah.
So just say yes, just throw it up and be safe about it. That would be
of course.
my caution.
Yeah.
But I do think, especially studying abroad, and we've touched on it, it's your time to explore and figure out what you like. And maybe you've never done something like that before. And you'll be leaving in 4 months. And maybe you'll do it again and maybe you won't.
Yeah.
But hey, what an experience. What a time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steph. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on.
I am joined by the marvelous Pauline McKerrall. Hello, Pauline. How are you?
Good. How you do yourself, though?
Yeah, I'm pretty darn good. Tell me a little bit about your role so people understand what you do for us at FIE.
Yeah, so as the Associate Director of Administration, I am charged with all things course registration and the associated academic schedule. So as part of students' application for their time in London, they fill in an academic programme options form and let us know which courses that they're interested in, whether that be their key course, their visiting faculty courses or electives. We use that information to then determine which courses are going to run in the semester or for the programme. I then contact faculty for their availability to teach those courses, and as a result, create a schedule and then plug in those course preferences that students have submitted. And eventually we arrive at the point where students know what they're registered for, what their schedule is, faculty know what their schedule is. It's a bit of a 3D jigsaw, basically.
Yeah.
That's how I describe it a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts, but you're really at the coalface with students' choices and how they kind of are accessing the classes they've chosen to take. So what do you think students really need to consider while they're preparing for their study abroad in terms of their courses?
Yeah, I recognise sometimes it can be difficult for students in the fact that they apply to a study abroad program, and the focus is really on the abroad part a lot of the time. But the study is really important at the same time. The big thing is in terms of your course choices, considering what credit you can get for your time here. So a lot of the time it will be discussion with your academic advisors back on the home campus or the study abroad coordinators to determine what kind of credit you can get for your time here in London, because it can count towards your degree course. It really can count at the same time as having that experience abroad. And it's an opportunity to get that credit in a different way than you would get it back on home campus. You know, you're coming over here to take courses in London, and we very much use London as the classroom. You can take a Shakespeare course back on campus, but while you're over here, you take Shakespeare and then you go see a show at the Globe with that open air. Whether it's raining or not, you're going to be in there. You can, learn a British history course, but that back on campus. But can you go visit the Imperial War Rooms and really get to heart with what happened during World War II and the founding of our country thereafter and how we continued. It's an opportunity to just do things a little bit differently, but still get those credits you need.
Yeah. So you're saying keeping an open mind about the courses you can be taking, and kind of if you need, say, I don't know, like you say, humanities credit, maybe thinking about doing something that you might not do on the home campus.
Exactly. So, it is about, you can get those credits, but not necessarily focus on getting specific credit. As I'm working through creating the schedule, often there will be clashes between courses. And so it's not always possible to get those specific credits that you need. So keep an open mind. It is an opportunity to get general credit as well. And it's an opportunity to do something a little bit different. Why not investigate a country through its food and take food society and culture? Why not look at London a little bit differently and take photojournalism and go out into the city and explore different places and look at it from a different angle?
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for you that, everyone talks about study abroad as being an opportunity for growth and kind of soft skills and, self-development. It's an opportunity for exploration. It's an opportunity to just do something a little bit different, something that that no one else gets to do if they don't study abroad. It's just that chance to do it differently. And to just think about things in a different way.
Yeah, which is really what a valuable, important education should be doing. It's not just about being really focused on your vocation and everything being about business or everything about being history of art or whatever it is that your major is. A really great education is multidisciplinary and really, so vast and wide. And you see, the more you learn like that, I think the more you see how interconnected everything is.
Exactly so.
And it's a great opportunity for that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it can be a disturbing influence, but in a great way. It can kind of jolt you from the everyday. It can, and it just enriches you that little bit more. It just, kind of fuels you in different ways if you decide to look at things a little bit differently. Yeah.
And of course, you're always there with a bit of advice if students need it.
Sure. Now, technically, our ad drop period is a month before arrival, but inevitably, once you get on the ground, things might change a little bit and the reality might set in. I am available. I'm in the penthouse of Foundation House up on the 5th floor. I always, in the first couple of weeks of semester, I have a selection of great British snacks. No one does a biscuit. No one does a crisp. or chip the way that we do. And I'm more than happy to see students once they get here on the ground. So it's a lot of talking before you get here, and it's absolutely fantastic to be able to put faces to names. So if I've been emailing back and forth with you before you arrive, please come and see me once you get on the ground, because it's always a pleasure to put those faces to names.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Pauline. Thank you for talking to me.
Cheers, Heidi.
Thank you to my brilliant colleagues for giving their fantastic and thoughtful advice there. And thank you for listening. I hope you feel a little bit more confident about your study abroad semester. Come open, come willing to learn, and I promise we will be here every step of the way to support you. We really do look forward to meeting you and watching you shine and thrive and take the world by storm. FIE provides life-changing study abroad experiences in the UK, Ireland and Spain. As a non-profit educational organisation, we are passionately invested in making a difference for our students as the future global leaders of tomorrow and the field of international education as a whole. The FIE podcast is a creative and academic space for exploring everything, the people, places and opportunities that make your experience so valuable and exciting.
FIE. We're here to help you
Unlock a wider,
brighter future.